So what are the 5 critical components of this growth engine, right? In the title, I said the growth engine. So the first one is acceleration. It's this wave we talked about, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how this wave made it possible for us to just hit that 10 million in that predictable straight line. We used our funds to basically build Hotjar and take our time to do it. And it gave us this acceleration, right? So there was a lot of people using Hotjar, speaking about it, and it built, there's a nice... So this was huge for us. So we ended up getting around 60,000 emails, of which 18,000 participated in the beta, so it had a huge impact. Every conversation we had with every user during this phase was recorded. We'd put down what they said, we'd act on their feedback, we'd get back to them if we made a change. So the acceleration was even more compounded by the fact that we took the opportunity to be persons, right? To actually speak to people, to take a note.
Was by taking the product out completely. This is impossible to get founders to do, but it's very important. You have to completely take your product out of the picture and say, what was the living human circumstance that my product fits into? So we only speak to people who bought, and then we dig backwards to get to this chain of cause and effect of what happened to you, why did you need to buy something, what were your options, why then? So we're describing the situation, and we're explaining how it's going to be better, and we're not putting ourselves into some category and saying, Basecamp's #1 project management, or something like that.
And in most of the literature that I read, it's actually broken down into 2 phases. People talk about the search for product market fit, and then they talk about what comes after that. And I think that there's a really important additional step here that's one of the hardest steps for most founders, and I call that the search for repeatable, scalable, and profitable growth process. What is the most important question that you should always bear in your minds at all times? And that is, when are we going to run out of cash? Because fundamentally, if you don't solve that problem, you don't survive. It's a race against time, and in my view, the one way that the really successful startups have solved this problem is that they have leaders who've really understood the only way we're going to solve this problem is to have every single person have incredible clarity about what we need to do and be totally aligned, what the things are that you should get everybody focused on. And one way of looking at that is to go back to cash. You want to find a way to reduce your cash burn and keep it as low as possible during these first 2 phases here, to give yourself as much runway as you possibly can do. Do not add hires, do not ramp people, do not start trying to force things to happen quicker than they're ready to happen, and simply recognize some of these things are unpredictable and will just take a fair amount of time to get right here.
Let's jump right into it. Why is a sales call still important and relevant today, and why do I believe it will still be relevant 5-10 years from now? Early days, I would advise you to do it, or once in a while to do it, just to stay in touch with your customers. The most dangerous thing you can do is get out of touch with your customers. And that's something that's going to automatically happen. The faster your business grows, the more you're not going to know anymore what your customers think, what they feel, what their fears are, what really is going on in their life. When you think about the sales call for SaaS, I want you to think about it just like a product. Think UI, UX. What is the user experience when I call them? In the beginning, here's a bunch of tips on what to do. When it comes to inbound leads, people that come to your site, your landing page, put in their information, give it to you voluntarily. You have to find a way to call them within 5 minutes. If you call them within 5 minutes, your reach rate, and this actually sounds wrong, but it's scientifically proven. There's a research project at some university that proved that you have a 100% higher reach rate when you call within 5 minutes than if you call 10 minutes later, an hour later, a day later.
30 million small businesses in the US alone, 60 million in the English-speaking countries, and 600 million globally. And as you can see, the vast majority of them, kind of 91% in the US anyway, tend to be pretty small. And that trend, I think, is similar across markets. A change in the nature of work. It's increasingly rare for people to, graduate from university and join some big company and go work there for the rest of their lives. People are wanting more meaning, more authenticity, more flexibility, and they're choosing to work for themselves either in whole or in part. Unlike kind of consumer and enterprise software, which tend to be winner takes all or winner takes most kind of market dynamics, in SME software, it's so fragmented that there's always room for new players, and similarly, there's always room to consolidate. SMBs churn at a very high rate, and so you're usually forced to go up market finding larger customers. But if you can get the math to work, then that's when the magic happens, and some of the biggest outcomes are in SME.
So everyone's talking about account-based marketing, account-based sales, account-based prospecting. It's really kind of funny because all it really means is focusing your marketing and sales efforts on specific companies. That's been happening in enterprise sales for 100 years. The folks who are finding you, coming your way, those are people who are experiencing a pain, and they hear about your solution, and then they contact you, and then you together explore whether there's a fit between your solution and the pain that they have. And the problem is really twofold. What I just described was more of a spam problem, right? It reflects badly on your company. But the other problem is they're just wasting arrows on companies that probably aren't the right fit in the first place. What is in-your-face personalization? Basically, it's doing enough homework that when your prospect reads the email, they can't avoid going, wow, they did their homework.
And when a pitch comes in, the default answer always to anything that comes up, no matter who it comes from, is no. No, maybe one day. Maybe one day is the escape valve. Each team is one designer and two programmers. We are extremely efficient. So we have one designer, two programmers, maybe one or two QA people. And done means I don't have a subsequent integration step. I don't have more. It's ready to go at a moment's notice. We could give it to a customer.
Giving away your SaaS product too cheaply is something which we've seen many, many times. Double your prices. Really, give it a try. You don't have a lot to lose, but if it works out, and I've seen many companies where it did work out, it can completely transform your business.
Don't assume that because you're growing at over 20% month on month in your first year of business, that you can do the same thing in your second year of business.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't screw up your fundraising.
Things always take more time than you expect. You build a house, it will take more time. You build a software, it will take more time. You're looking for success, it will take more time. Everybody tells you, you need a big vision, you need to change the market, disrupt, dominate the world. This is bullshit. What you need is a strong drive to success. VCs don't care about good business. They don't care. They just care about business that are shooting for the moon, who are going to be owning the market, who are going to own the market, who are going to be leader, the first, the $1 billion, yada, yada, yada. Still, 7 out of their 10 investments will miserably fail.
We live in a world where acquisition as we know it is dead. And the reason that acquisition is really kind of diminishing, if not really kind of dying out as the main source of growth, is because we live in a very, very different product era. Fundamentally in this world of SaaS is really, it's now very, very pinpointed in terms of customer value for growth rather than just on acquisition. And we actually discovered that while early on they didn't have that many competitors, over the past couple of years, their competitors have gone from single digits all of a sudden to double digits. But what's fascinating about this is that because software has become easier and easier to ship, and we're seeing this change essentially in the cyclical revolutions of SaaS, we're also finding that the relative value of features is diminishing. And to put it another way, all software is essentially going to zero. Could be €0 or $0. Unfortunately, they're pretty equal at this point.